All right, so I want to make this call as interactive as possible. As I framed it in the email, hey, listen, I came across a great article, or maybe I should say a tweet from Patrick Bet-David, and so I want to share it with you guys. But before I do that, I want to share something a little bit funny, I think. So if you guys see, I'm going to start texting this back. If I didn't text you quickly enough, okay? So I came across this yesterday. I thought this was pretty funny. Why I didn't text you back? Multiple choice. I was asleep. No. I was driving. No. I was ignoring you. No. I forgot. No. Here's the check mark. I saw your text and told myself that I was going to respond, but I wanted to finish what I was doing first. After that, I got sidetracked and went to do something else and completely forgot your text even existed because I was stuck in my own tiny world until I went to text you days or even weeks later about something completely unrelated. Does that sound familiar at all? Right? So again, if I send you that picture, you'll know that I got caught up in my tiny world, and I apologize. All right, so here's what I wanted to cover here with you guys. I don't know if any of you guys saw this. Obviously, I think all of you know Patrick Bet-David. I think you all probably listen to him and his podcast. I mean, he's certainly upping his frequency, and he's talking about what's going on in the news. And obviously, 2024, there's an election, so it seems a little politically charged. But obviously, when it comes to business, Pat's on top of it, and he runs, I want to say, 9 companies today. So he's a really busy guy. And I think he's really on point when it comes to just, what you need to do to level up in business. And so I came across this last year at the end of 2023, and I'm like, I just want to go through this with you guys. And I'm curious to, again, get the dialogue going. If any of these really stick out to you, if any of these are things that we can work on, but I think that this is really a true statement. I mean, top 10 ways to increase your market value, right? How to make yourself more valuable in the market. And so number one, and I think this resonates with all of us because, we teach this, and I'd say we're all pretty competent in this area, but ability to sell or negotiate, right? Even when you guys are dealing with landlords, can you negotiate with your landlord? Can you find win-wins? But your ability to sell or negotiate increases market value. Ability to lead, drive, and unite a team. I would think that that one speaks to you as well, too. This one's a little different. A specialized skill. The higher the level of difficulty for the skill, the better the pay. Number 4, deep, valuable connections. Right? Are you stretching your comfort zone? Are you making deep, valuable connections? Number 5, actual cash you bring to the table. That'll increase your market value, that you have the ability to invest your stakeholder. You're bringing money to the table. Number 6, a strong reputation for strategy, right? A strong reputation for strategy. Number 7, high level of tolerance for pressure and stress. Sorry, I read that backwards. For stress and pressure. Do you have a high tolerance or do you have a low tolerance for stress and pressure? Number 8, an attractive, positive attitude backed up with a strong work ethic. I mean, that sounds like you want to be a field rep, you want to be successful in our business, positive attitude, great work ethic. I mean, that's the 1-2 punch. Number 9, a constant desire to learn and improve. I mean, that one describes Patrick Bet-David. I've known him since he was in his early 20s, and I was very much impressed with the guy just couldn't read enough. He couldn't learn enough. He was a sponge, right? A constant desire to learn and improve. And number 10, the ability to see the future threats and opportunities. So I'm going to leave this up. And again, what I was really hoping for on today's call is that we've just got some dialogue, some roundtable discussion, a little different than what we normally do on these workshop calls. But I want to hear from you guys. I want your input. I want, what does this I mean, I'll send this to you if you want right after this call. But what does this mean to you? What do you think about this?
Well, my first thought is like, I think I do some of that well sometimes. And thinking about 10 things feels a little overwhelming. Like, oh, shoot, could I do all of this really well consistently? Then my second thought is like, well, maybe I don't need to do all of it consistently right away. I could just focus on one thing I think I could really improve on and something I could double down on and slowly chip away at it. Those are kind of my initial reaction and thoughts to what you're showing, Jamie.
Mhm.
I also agree with all 10 statements. There's nothing I disagree with what's being said here.
And so you think, so I'm not sure if you had to rank them 1 through 10, right? Like, well, this one, man, I'm great at this. And then here's the one that I'm probably, least great with. Do you think that the number 10, whatever that would be, is something you can drive?
Are you saying literally number 10 or like where I would have ranked 10 and 10 is the strength or is 10 the weakness?
No, if you were to rank these, personally, right, 1 through 10, like, greatest strength to greatest, I don't want to say weakness, but area for growth, whatever would land in the number 10 spot, do you think that's something that you could drive, something you could work on, something you could be great at with enough attention?
Well, I have to take a look at, I'll get back to you on that, I guess, but I'm trying to figure out which one I think would be the one area of improvement for the most.
Yeah, I mean, that was something I asked myself. I mean, when I first saw this, I'm like, oh, some of these are right in my wheelhouse. Others are like, oh, is this something I can improve? Is this an area for improvement here? Can I improve? Who are the people that I can surround myself with that I can improve at this?
I mean, the short answer is I go through all the lists. I still haven't fully prioritized it, but there's not one on there that I don't think if I put focus into, I couldn't see an improvement on.
Mhm.
You know, I think at some point in my career, I've probably worked on all of these, including, bringing cash to the table. But um, I don't know if I would work. I think that might be that one might be the only one that's more of a byproduct of just good saving habits and money making habits. But
Mhm.
uh, for sure, anyways, for sure, I think there's not one on there that I think if I didn't focus on, I could make an improvement on.
Okay.
I'm
Other
curious
thoughts?
if anyone else's thoughts.
Yeah.
I think exactly what Jeff said. I think they're all capable of you working on them, and improving them and getting better at them. I think like a strong reputation for strategy. I feel like you need some years of experience to get a strong reputation for that. When I read something like that, like I've run a business for 3 years, I don't have a strong reputation for strategy, you know. So
Mhm.
I think that's something that needs some years put in, but all the others I think you can really tackle and chip away at immediately.
Yeah, some of these are tested with time. I mean, I totally agree with that. A strong reputation. I mean, you need a proven track record of competency, right? Others, like number 8, as an example, to me, number 8 is a decision, an attractive, positive attitude. I mean, that's a decision when you wake up. I remember getting to that point as a rep, like, you know what? I'm going to decide no matter what is thrown my way today, I'm going to have a smile on my face all day. Right. So it was just a decision on the front end and just manage that decision throughout the day. And again, a strong work ethic, to me, that's just choice. That one can be instant. Not necessarily easy. I get it because, like, wow, Jamie, depends on the curveball that's thrown at you. But, you know, to me, number 8's a decision, and number 6 would be tested with time, to your point, Dean.
Yeah. Number 9, I call it a decision too. Constant desire to learn and improve. I mean, you just make a decision to do that.
Mm-hmm. How about a decision for like deep valuable connections? Is that one a choice? What is that?
I think that's, and maybe some of these that are choices are also just priorities. I think just being aware, cognizant of something being a priority, thinking about it all the time will increase your effectiveness in that area. But I think that's a great one. I think that's one that, in my early days of business, it wasn't like I didn't think it was important, but it wasn't something I thought about a lot. And, as the time went on and I spent more time coaching people, seeing things play out in the long term, became more and more of something that I was aware of and thinking about constantly when I'm thinking about coaching my people or preparing for different conversations, preparing for different events. So I think, some of these could just be a matter of where they are prioritized in, your routine and how you go about your business.
Or even going to, like, we've got keys coming up, soon. If you had to really think about number 4, deep valuable connections, one is kind of back to you. What would you do to prepare going into keys if you really want to knock that one out of the park?
Well, that's a great question. I think everybody kind of goes somewhat prepared for keys, but that may not be one of the things that you're preparing for, right? And so you may, not necessarily create appointments, but communicate with people prior to an event like that and just make sure that you prioritize and set aside time, carve it out, whether they be people that you're going to learn from or just people that you see as partners. Um, it can be something that is more apparent in your planning, and you'd end up accomplishing it more if it was part of your planning.
Mm-hmm. Anybody want to take a stab at number 10, the ability to see the future threats and opportunities? How is that something to work on?
I think that's something that we have to be really honest with ourselves on. Like all 10 of these I could probably be pretty deceptive about of thinking I'm good enough at. But I feel like number 10 is the actual test of whether or not you predicted an opportunity playing out well. Like we do this with prelims every day where you take a bet on a guy and you think he's going to play out in a certain way. But if you get enough of those right or wrong, you start to figure out if you actually know what you're talking about.
Hmm.
So I think that's like the action step of what a lot of these would play into, like your connections or your reputation. 10 manifests into action.
I think 10 is reps, getting the experience. Like you need to win some, lose some, and know where your weaknesses are, not just in your guys, but in the way to run a business and what works for you, what doesn't, what works for the industry, what doesn't. But it's kind of like the confidence you have in your forecasting is the reps and experience that you have. If you have no experience, you're guessing. If you have experience, you're making that guess closer to a fact than it's not.
I guess to build off that, I think you can develop that skill through reps. I think you can develop it through a lot of reflective listening. You could actually pair it with deep, valuable connections. If you're newer, you could be asking people with more experience to look for opportunities or threats that you might be missing. But I find the preparation will make a lot of difference. If you're thinking about an outcome and you start to go down a list, well, what are all the things that I think could go well with this? And what are all the things I think it could go wrong? I found that like sometimes I'm still surprised, but most of the time I'm not. So it's like the prep work can help. And as they say, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. So I think part of it is the practice of reflective listening. If you want to be able to become wiser, and then getting people that are significantly wiser than you to also look at something could help that ability to see future threats. So I think there's a part to develop the skill, but I think you can also outsource it to some extent as well.
Great.
Jamie, what's your take on it? You've got the most reps out of anybody.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, some of my conversations with Vera, right? I mean, this has been multi-year kind of conversation, like, what industries do we need to break into, right? So obviously, we're great in the telecom space. We've been great in the telecom space for 20 plus years. We're great in the energy space, right? So both of those industries have nice recurring revenue attached for the client, and so they can throw bigger bounties and things like that. So, okay, so those two industries work. Well, what else? Well, then years ago when I was asked that question, I'm like, probably office supplies. And they're like, what do you mean, Jamie? I'm like, every business uses them, and I don't think they're loyal to a certain vendor. I think they're loyal to their pocketbook. If there's a better deal, I think people are going to snag it. So we got into the office supply space. So I guess the question for you guys is, you're kind of navigating the future too. I mean, that question is going to keep coming up. Like, what else should we be in? And listen, if you're running a flagship office and you're running, a great deal, you can be part of some test pilot new industry that we get into. And boy, if that code cracks, if you can crack that code, there's a wonderful opportunity there for you. So that one's interesting, right? The ability to see the future, threats, what are some of the challenges coming our way, and hey, what are some of the opportunities coming our way? That's something we should always be thinking about. I mean, 5 years ago, I wasn't thinking of a global pandemic, right, as a threat. I mean, that didn't cross my mind, but it apparently crossed Gary's mind, and he'd been saving up for that. And I'm like, what? How did you see that coming? But he kind of saw that coming, believe it or not. I asked Gary years ago, this was interesting, right? Like the printing business that he was in before he was in our business. And I made a comment to him like, oh, geez, it sounded so risky, because all his profits would go to new equipment. And like for years, he didn't make any money. And he says, no, Jamie, there was no risk. He had it planned so well that he factored risk out of the equation. And I'm like, interesting. But he's definitely one of those, strong reputation for strategy. That's GP. That's certainly one of his strengths all day long.
Yeah, if you get an opportunity to spend any time with him, if you can forecast, if you could just that's why I send him all of my stuff every week, because he will give you a legit forecast of your world. And he's been spot on every time I talk to him. So it's been, he's got a lot of reps, he's got a lot of experience. He knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah. Again, along with like future opportunities too, I like surveying often. I'd run several morning meetings years ago, just saying to the reps, like, hey, if you could sell anything you want of any product available for you to sell, like what would you want to sell? I know that's not your goal, is to be a career salesperson, but while you're learning the business and growing, if you could sell any product. And the number one response I heard was, green energy. And obviously I got into the solar space because of that. But one of the other ones that came up that I thought was interesting is, and this is before it became popular, I had a rep say, we should get into the vaping business. It's going to be huge. People are going to ditch cigarettes and get into vaping. So I had a rep who is way ahead of the curve, that if somehow we actually did get into that space, kind of weird, hey, we're going business to business or retail or something like that. But hey, as we develop even retail relationships, and we get real estate in some of these retail stores, hey, what should we sell? If Walmart opens a door for us and we have a booth inside Walmart and we could sell whatever we want, what should that be? Should we be in the insurance business? I mean, should we license reps and get into insurance? I mean, again, there's lots of possibilities, but I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole here on number 10. But that one gets my creative juices running for sure. The ability to see future threats and opportunities.
Roofing.
The roofing business, I mean, yeah, there are companies that are literally storm chasers. They have field reps that chase storms, and they go knock on doors after a hailstorm goes through, and they're like, hey, you need a new roof? We can help you out. And it's like, interesting. Storm chasing business. Anything else? Just again, I thought this was interesting. If you want this, shoot me an email or text and I'll send you this little snapshot here. But I thought this was interesting. It's certainly had my juices flowing. I'm like, sometime in 2024, I want to run a call on this, maybe get your hamsters running too. And maybe this is a checklist for you to, hey, listen, I want to increase my market. I mean, the more you increase your market value, the higher your net worth. I mean, the two go hand in hand. You'll make more money as you increase your market value. Which areas are you kicking butt in and which areas need improvement? But I think this is a nice checklist for us all to keep at the front of our minds.
It's also a good, so I screenshotted this, way back when. It's a really good, like, see where people value, how they value themselves. If you were to take, Patrick's name off and just put it in, if you were to give yourself a score on each one, where's your biggest area of opportunity to develop? It's a good coaching tool too.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any other final thoughts? Hey, give me some feedback after too. I mean, again, different kind of call. Kind of wanted an open mic type of forum here for you guys rather than bringing on a guest speaker and, lecturing you.
I'll give a plug for him. Get his book, The Next 5 Moves. That's basically number 10. If you guys want to work on that.
Say that one more time, Kevin. You're
Get Patrick Bet-David's book, The Next 5 Moves. If you guys want to work on number 10, that's what his book talks about.
Have you read Choose Your Enemies Wisely yet?
No, I'm still waiting for him to give me a free book.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really good. Everybody should read it as soon as possible before you get too deep into the year. It's an unbelievable, it's like how to build a business plan, how to set up yourself now for the end of the year. Fantastic book. Better than choose, your next 5 moves. It's a better book.
Okay, great. All right, next week we have Mr. Angus joining us, Ken Lear the week after that. So I'm bringing the guest speakers back on next week and the week after. You guys have yourselves a great week. I will talk to you soon.